All right, guys. We think we're live. Let's give it a shot. It's always a delay, but we'll see. I'm just going to spin my wheel for a little bit. We'll talk. Jimmy Toscano.
Welcome to the show.
Bobby Manning down below. As you see, have a sponsor.
Or a tripod.
We've got a sponsor.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of tripod.
I'm going to tell you about him a little bit. It's Manscaped. Everyone loves Manscaped. You get, the whole performance package kit. It's ready for you. I'm going to give you details on it later, but 20% off. Free shipping. Use the code GARDEN20 and that's it. It's all yours. But we are here not to talk about grooming. We're here to talk about the Celtics. We are less than a week out to the draft. It was a really eventful week, as everybody here knows. Obviously, you have the big story was the passing of Tommy Heinsohn. We're going to get into that in a little bit. He's a legend. Everyone's got their stories. I know Jimmy does. I do. We both had the privilege of working with him. I worked with Tommy for 10 years. And so obviously this is a tremendous loss. Yeah. Tremendous loss for the Celtics family, for everybody. He's the one tie we have to all 17 championships. So we're going to talk about Tommy for sure. We're also going to talk about the NBA draft. Really only Bobby has any clue what he's talking about. So we're just going to let him talk for a little bit. And Jimmy and I are going to go to the bathroom.
Look at that notepad.
He's got his note.
It's a thick one.
We're gonna nod. Whatever it is, here's my draft philosophy. This is how I deal with all drafts. All I do is just get angry.
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm pre-angry.
There's more booing than cheering on draft night.
Right. I'm angry no matter what we do, no matter what the Celtics do, no matter what the Patriots do. That's just my MO. I just get angry.
Sure.
So whatever you say, Bobby, I'm gonna hate it. I'm gonna hate that player.
All right.
Okay.
And that's actually a good way to just go through life in general.
Yeah. I hate it first, and you got to talk me into liking it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the other thing we've got is some interesting rumors. So this is where it gets fun, and we're going to start with it right out of the gate. Right away, the Celtics. We know Danny wants to move. Jimmy, are you all right there, buddy?
Dude, yeah, when you see me do that, I'm just adjusting the screen. I'm looking at some
your
of the
head
comments
is
and stuff.
You're barely hanging on, though. I'm really worried about the top of your head.
I'm right here. Because I haven't gotten
I just want to make sure I see all of you. So here's what happened today. Kevin O'Connor, and I'm going to read the little snippet here in his updated mock draft. He always drops a great nuggets in here, too. These are gold mines. But here's what he wrote. He said, the Celtics have offered up their 3 first-round picks, 14, 26, and 30, in trades to try to move up into the lottery. Technically, 14 is in the lottery, right?
Yep.
Yeah, higher into the lottery. He wrote into the lottery. But multiple league sources say they intend to reroute that pick to the Pelicans in exchange for Jrue Holiday. If Boston is able to acquire the necessary assets, they still need to add salaries to make this work, which could mean, dun, 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 Gordon Hayward or Kemba Walker could be on the move, which is where things start to get interesting. Now, at face value, it would seem that all of this plus a player for Jrue Holiday would seem like an overpay. So you're looking here, Bobby and Jimmy, realistically to involve a third team, get more player movement. Yeah. It doesn't seem like that's the type of deal you can make, which is to say all of those picks plus a player for Holiday, when you can argue whether or not even the player going over is of equal value. But just what do you guys think of this deal, and what would it take to make it work?
It makes sense because of the fact that you have 2 players here in Jrue Holiday, Gordon Hayward, who are essentially expiring contracts if Holiday opts out of the second year of his player option, which, is next year for $26 million. I do think you're right, John, that they're going to need a third team to get this done. Now, there's 2 intriguing players there. The Atlanta Hawks, who have been talking to New Orleans consistently about moving up to that number 6 pick, and the Indiana Pacers, who continue to be linked to the Boston Celtics in some way. I think you end up diverting Hayward somewhere else in one of those scenarios, and then taking Jrue Holiday back to the Celtics, and then possibly having either Miles Turner come to the Celtics. It's going to be complicated. There's a lot of guys moving around here because Jrue Holiday makes 26 and Hayward makes 34, which isn't in that salary matching range. The tricky thing is, though, is Hayward going to be on the roster? I think that's where this gets difficult because he's essentially going to have to sign off on this trade.
Right.
I don't think he's going to opt in. I mean, if you had the option to opt in, if he was
He'll do
intent
what
on
Robin
opting
tells
in,
him to do. Okay.
yeah,
So
I think we would have. I think
Wow.
we would have heard it already, though.
we don't know what that is.
I think we would have heard if he was staying. So he's going to
Retired?
opt on and give himself that flexibility.
No, I mean, look, with the numbers here in the cap, I mean, realistically, he stands to lose a lot by opting out, unless I don't think that deal's there for him this year, but it might be next year. I think he opts in. And if he does, then we talked about the necessity to move him. And so this does make sense if it's Hayward for Holiday. It does get intriguing though when you start to talk about other potential players here. Now, one could be, and again, Kevin O'Connor mentioned him, Kemba Walker. This might be early to jump off the Kemba train. It's really more of an interesting conversation in a bubble about Kemba, regardless of whether or not you're involved in a deal for Holiday here, whether or not the Celtics would want to try to find a way out of the Kemba situation after only a year. And Jimmy, you're shaking your head no.
It seems like a rushed move. It seems like what is wrong with us that we can't enjoy Kemba Walker for more than a year here in Boston? I mean, are we that like in this world that we're in now? We just are constantly on to the next thing, the best thing, the better thing. Like we're already calling Kemba Walker damaged goods. Like we're already trying to get rid of him. Oh, he's 30 plus years old, and the team's younger, and they need to make sure that they're set up for the future. It's like, can we just try to enjoy Kemba Walker and this team? Because when the Celtics, when the previous season just started, these guys were clicking on all cylinders. And I know that the last time we remember Kemba Walker is, he was a defensive liability, or he wasn't hitting his shots the way he was. And one of the storylines was, what's wrong with Kemba Walker? Can he coexist with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? It's like, yes, I think he can. And I think they were kind of jumping the gun here. Look, if people are trying to trade him just to bring in another 30-plus year guard in like a Jrue Holiday, I don't know if that's really, improvement there. So I think what's important to me is let's see if Kemba Walker is healthy. I think he will be. This guy wasn't damaged goods when he came to Boston. He hasn't been a player that's missed a ton of time over the years, as far as I can remember. And I think that he can still contribute a lot. And I think that he is the attitude. He is a player with the right attitude. So it's not just what his skills are, but I think his mentality is, I think his leadership is what this team needs. And I think he's a player that the team should consider keeping around. I wouldn't just dump him just for the sake of it.
And I'm going to give you my take in a minute. But first, Danny Ainge spoke to the media this week, kind of a pre-draft situation, and Bobby was in on it, and he was listening. A couple decent nuggets here, but one of them was on Kemba Walker, and that got people talking. It's again, we're talking about his health going forward into next year. Listen to Danny, and you tell me what you think here.
You've talked about Kemba Walker's knee not being right. How does this impact his recovery? How do you expect him to be? How ready do you expect him to be for a training camp that's suddenly going to begin December 1st? And then how would you handle him during the rest of the beginning of the season?
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that yet. But whatever it is, we'll be ready for that. And I have all the confidence in the world that Kemba will be back and healthy and fresh and ready. When that is, what he's doing right now is very important during this off season. But, we know how good of a player Kemba is and how good he can be. And, last year was a very unique situation too, and this upcoming year is very unique. But, we have to put Kemba's health at the front as a number one priority. Going in regarding Kemba, we have to make sure we got 3 more years with Kemba at least. And we're excited about those 3 years. He's a terrific player. But, yeah, there could be maintenance issues during the off season and early part of the season. But at some point, he'll be back and ready to go.
Okay.
Nick.
We brought Nick in. So here's what we're talking about here.
We got Nick in here?
Yeah, I let him in. He was knocking on the door.
Boss.
Let me in. So we let him in. No, the truth is we begged him. We all begged him to join. So here's what we're talking about, okay? Kemba Walker. Jimmy. Okay, I get it. He was a breath of fresh air coming off of the Kyrie Irving stuff. Absolutely. This was what they needed. Mark me down as one of those guys ready to sell all of his Kemba shares now. And I'm not saying for anything, but I would absolutely look for the right move if somebody were willing to take him to get out of the next 3 years of Kemba Walker. I don't think I want it. It's nothing against him. I like him. I like what he does. I like the guy. I like the leadership. I like his attitude. I like that he'll be deferential to Tatum and the kids, and he has no ego whatsoever. He really was exactly what we needed in a year after Kyrie Irving. But this stuff with the knee and his defensive and the defensive issues and the way he played in the playoffs, I think I'm all set. And I hate to rush to judgment so quickly, but one more maintenance year and a not so good run in the playoffs, and that's it. I think you've got one shot to sell high-ish on Kemba, and it's now or never. And so I would look for it. I think we lost Jimmy.
So you're talking about for this New Orleans deal, right?
I would consider, not straight up with all of the picks here, for Holiday. I would consider it.
Now, I think the only reason the Pelicans would be intrigued by this is because of the years on Kemba's contract, but they have to be certain he's going to be healthy. And if I look at the situation and the Celtics are sure he's going to be healthy and the Pelicans are sure he's going to be healthy, I want him in Boston. He already was damaged throughout the playoffs and played extraordinarily well, 20 points a game almost. Was shooting well in that Philadelphia series. Now, it kind of came to a halt as the postseason went on, but he was still central to what they did in the early portions of it, through about game 4 in that Toronto series.
He had 2 bad series.
Yeah.
He plays 2 bad series out of 3. I don't know how much you attribute that to the knee, but I'm not on board with 3 years of maintenance. I mean, this is not like it was the same thing with Kyrie. I didn't want anything to do with Kyrie's health either, let alone the attitude. But Nick, jump in here. Kemba, yay or nay?
When Danny talks that way,
You're right,
sure, when Danny starts talking, he's dropping. There's something more wrong with that knee. Let's face it. He was unhealthy in the playoffs, and I agree with John. I can't even say Kemba's name and Kyrie's name in the same sentence, even though I just did.
Right.
But I don't want to see those two, or I don't want to see a similar situation. And didn't we just go through 3 years and hundreds of millions of dollars of maintenance with Gordon? I'm all set.
Yeah. I'd sell my shares now, and
So
everyone's going to get mad. There was a lot of anger on.
John,
most of Celtics Twitter today was reacting like, don't get Kemba's name out of your mouth. Like, nobody mentioned Kemba Walker in this deal, and they were offended by the possibility. I'm listening. I'm listening here. I want to hear. I want to see what could get done.
John, I couldn't hear you right out of Ainge. Can you just real quick summarize what your take was there?
My take was I'm ready to to sell my shares of Kemba.
Really?
I'm legit concerned about the knee, and I don't think this team needs a Kemba style player right now. I don't think so.
What do you think they need? More of a passing, just like defensive point guard?
I mean, I would rather.
Like a Rondo.
No, but I mean, I like Holiday because of his defense as well. And so you don't have to worry about Kemba playing himself off the floor as happens sometimes, or Jimmy Butler just, all right, I'll take it, and switch mismatch situation. It's not as you wouldn't be as afraid there, but I am legitimately concerned about the health, and this being if it's maintenance and breaking down in year 1, heading into another year or early season of maintenance, and let's make sure Kemba's right. By what do you got after year 4? I'm not interested. I don't want to be around for that.
John, the other thing with that too is I'm sorry, Jimmy, I just stepped on you, but I expected Kemba, injured or not, to be a calming force in the playoffs, and that did not happen. I mean, I think in the Raptors series, he had that check your heart, moment. But other than that, he was not a calming force. That's probably where my biggest upset with him was I love the guy. I mean, he's all smiles. He's the anti-Kyrie. He's great. But injured, kind of fell apart in the playoffs.
But you
Go,
can't,
Jimmy.
I feel like that's a little unfair because that was kind of a new situation it was a new situation for Kemba Walker too, just as much as,
Some of these young.
Yeah, he's professional, but that doesn't mean he has experience in that situation. So again, he's a new guy on the team. Yeah, and he took a bit of a leadership role for sure throughout the course of the season. I think the team being away from each other for long stretches changed the dynamic of things during the return. I think playing in the bubble changes things. I'm not trying to make an excuse for them because everyone dealt with the same things, but for you guys to just sit there and say, "Oh, Kemba Walker's damaged goods, get out while you still can," I haven't necessarily seen enough of that to call him damaged goods yet. I mean,
but
he missed some time.
He
played through whatever pain he was going through. And I'm also not going to say that his struggles were because of his knee. I mean, he was working his way.
That would be more concerning. If his struggles weren't because of his knee, that would worry me more.
That wouldn't be. No, that would not worry you more. That's just a guy going through a rough stretch. I mean, what are they saying about Pascal Siakam? I mean, are they going to trade him? Are they going to throw him back to the D League for the way he played in the series, or are they saying, okay, I had a bad series?
We'll have to check that one.
Bobby, what are they saying? Yeah,
He was next level bad. Now let's talk about what struggles were for Kemba here. 20 points in 4 of the last 6 games. He had at least 15 in each game of the conference finals. So labored or not, he was still fighting through it. He might not have been his efficient self, but he was still contributing the kind of offense they needed here. I think if you're in championship
too, how many times in those post games though, Bobby, were we like, what this team doesn't need is Kemba dribbling the ball for 15 seconds, trying to find his rhythm. Like, we've got an alpha on this team, okay? And it's not Kemba. So Kemba, you're much better off with a catch and shoot sort of guy than you are with a guy who's got to dribble the air out of the ball in order to find his rhythm and find his way. Like, I like that. The strength of Kemba was if other offense wasn't going well, it's nice to have another guy who could create. But he was struggling so hard to create his own shot late in the season and in the playoffs there. And I know it's the efficiency you mentioned. That's what worries me there is he was laboring to get those shots off, good shots off. And even when he was getting them and getting to his spots, he wasn't hitting them as consistently. It was hard to watch, not to mention the defensive liability that he presents every single time he's on the floor. So we were theorizing, like, are they better when we were talking about in the playoffs, Jimmy, whether or not there's a world in which he's not on the court late in the game and you're using Marcus at the point because Kemba's just killing you. And I know the numbers will bear out. Yeah.
You say that in one sentence, and in the next second you say, why is Marcus Smart on the floor taking these shots?
I want to trade everybody.
So which one is it?
I told you before this. I hate everything.
And which one is it?
We were beating up on every player. We were beating up on Jaylen Brown for not being aggressive.
Can we have a nuanced conversation? We don't hate Marcus Smart. We hate when Marcus Smart takes shots.
We hate when he misses shots.
Maybe
we hate when Marcus Smart takes.
There were times during the season.
Yeah, we do.
No, it was getting to a point during the season. He started to get.
We don't hate Marcus Smart.
No, we don't. But when Kemba Walker isn't on, or when he's not on the floor, guess who's taking more shots?
Yes.
I am selling my shares.
Fine, you sell it. But let me say one more thing. Let me say one more thing, Mr. Shareholder. Before you sell your shares, if you're Danny Ainge and if you're the Boston Celtics, you got to at some point look around the league and say, okay, what are players going to think of us? Are players going to want to play here? If players going to want to play here, are they going to want to sign here if we're trading Isaiah Thomas, if we're trading Kemba Walker, if Al Horford's leaving, if Kyrie Irving's leaving? Is this a place that players are going to want to? It's cold as hell as it is to begin with.
This goes back to your Tatum thing, John.
It's very warm. It's 65
Jason
degrees.
Tatum going to want to resign here? Is he going to
peel the layers off that onion? The Celtics tried to mortgage their future, probably at the detriment of everything going on with the team, to sign that dirtbag Kyrie. They tried everything possible to sign him, even though they knew it was a deleterious effect that he had on the franchise. But they tried. And then Al Horford was like, yeah, hey, I'm leaving too. That's a guy they brought in here. So the Celtics aren't doing guys dirty outside of Isaiah, which 30 out of 30 NBA franchises were doing that to Isaiah Thomas. Okay, it is what it is.
You're gonna trade Gordon next. I mean, you're gonna trade.
But they
Kemba.
haven't done that. They've been left at the
No,
altar.
I know, but I get
Kyrie
that. But I'm
left
just saying.
them. Al left them.
I have never had a free. I've never been so happy.
Out.
I've never been so happy about a superstar leaving than Kyrie Irving.
So all right.
We're not
so
going to
let's
get into Kyrie again.
let's say
No, I'm just
everybody.
saying it because in the chat room they're saying we're mad he left. I'm happy he left.
Oh no,
Mad?
goodness gracious! I'm just
Wow, if you think
the
we're
facts
mad he
are
left, then
he
welcome
left.
to the show
Nobody
for the
outside of
first time.
Boston is looking at the Celtics like, oh my goodness, they weren't able to sign these guys. They tried and failed.
No, but my point is, would a
let's
player
think
want to
of-
play here? It's just another reason why a player wouldn't want to think about coming here. I mean,
Even
That's a good
Sorry.
point, Jimmy. That's a
Yeah,
good
it
point,
is.
Jimmy. I also want you guys to consider what the kind of team that would be left over after this, plethora of moves that you all want to see. Jrue Holiday, Marcus Smart, Tatum, Brown, and
you
Miles
have no
Turner.
shooters.
Is that a championship team?
Bobby
I think
Furman,
that's a
you-
worse.
Nobody
think-
can hit a shot on that team.
I think that's a worse team than what they have right now. Holiday's
You-
better than Kemba. There's no doubt about that. But
You
all of a sudden,
can't believe that.
What?
all of a sudden,
There's no doubt about that.
yeah, Kemba's a bad defender. Holiday's the best defensive point guard in the league.
Okay,
Thank
but
you.
I still, yeah, okay. I'm not arguing the
But
defensive.
you
side.
also
Not Marcus
remove-
Smart.
If you also remove Hayward from that situation,
And that's
all
why
of a
I'm
sudden
willing
you're
to
down
please.
two.
That's why I'm willing to listen to this deal, because at the end of the day, let's not fool ourselves into believing that it's that big a package, okay? 14, 26, and 30, you know what that's worth? Nothing. Okay?
That's
Not a
not
ton.
true completely. That's not true completely.
I mean,
So do they want that? That's
If
my
one of
big
those
question.
picks hits, if one of those picks hits, John, on whoever they trade him to, you're not going to be sitting
I'm
there
still
saying,
waiting. I'm still waiting.
Oh, what a great trade. I can guarantee you that for 1 year of Jrue Holiday. You don't
I'm
even know
done
what's
waiting on
gonna happen.
picks too.
And they
Don't
have to
picks.
find a way to sweeten those picks, because right now, you know why you're hearing this today? All you've heard all offseason is the Celtics have 3 picks to move up, and every single day they're shopping them. Well, guess what? None of these teams want them. All of a sudden, you need a Kemba Walker style player to sweeten that up a little bit, because 14, 26, and 30 to a team in the top 10 is useless. I mean, those picks
So
aren't
that's what
getting
I'm
them
getting.
anywhere.
That's what I find confusing in this thing is I don't understand the math that 14, 26, and 30 gets you to 6.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I don't think it gets you to 12. You know, like
Well, that was the original infrastructure of this deal that Kevin talked about, was moving those picks to get up to 6, which isn't happening. I mean, frankly, Atlanta could.
is that you have to get to 6 to have a pick that's attractive enough, because New Orleans might be eyeing a particular player. I don't see how you get to 6 that way. I think if they're lucky, they get to 8, 9, or 10, and even that's a stretch.
The Celtics would be fortunate to be even involved in this conversation, because all they seriously have to offer here is salary, maybe the value of Kemba if another team likes him. But Atlanta has the pick, New Orleans has the player. What do the Celtics have here? I don't think it's going to happen. I don't
either. Mainly because it's a worth, and that's the reason I was willing to listen to this trade. Those picks to me are close to worthless if you're the Celtics. So you're basically looking to get out of 3 years of Kemba for 1 year of Jrue and see if you can re-sign him. And that would be the deal.
all I could think about is when the Grizzlies won,
and then you flip Hayward. Then Hayward opts in, and you flip him in a different deal, and that would be the movement.
I'm keeping Hayward.
That Indiana thing is still in play. If
all right,
let's get to
that.
Think that you'd still be looking at an Indiana deal.
Let's get to that Indiana deal, because I get the merits of trading Hayward. We've talked about this for 3 straight episodes now. Why you would trade
Jimmy's
Hayward?
upside down?
Not from what I see. Is that
he's upside down?
That's the meds they gave you at the dentist today, Nick.
Upside down.
You are. You're
Jimmy's
we know you're upside
Jimmy's-
down.
Wait.
Jimmy's rotating?
He's upside down.
No,
Sorry, guys.
I feel like I'm blood's rushing in my head listening to some of the things you guys are saying. Acting like Jrue Holiday is like God's greatest gift to basketball, and like Kemba Walker's trash. Like,
Well, I
I
feel
don't
the
think
same.
Kemba was trash.
I feel
Jrue
the
Hol-
same way
for you
about
to
Miles Turner.
you say
Miles Turner's trash.
Yeah, like I tweeted out earlier today. I'm like,
Hold on, let Jimmy get mad.
All
Let
right.
Jimmy get
Yeah, I
mad.
like it.
Go.
don't sit here and tell me that Jrue Holiday is light years better than Kemba Walker. I mean, Bobby's sitting here, hands down, best defensive guard in the NBA. This guy is, I understand he's an underrated player. I actually think he was like voted like underrated player in the NBA or something. I understand he's good on both ends of the floor. I know he's a much better defender than Kemba. But let's stop acting like this guy's like a perennial, like 6, 7, 8-time All-Star. Like trade whatever you can get for him. And like Kemba Walker is like hobbling around on crutches for the rest of his career. Like it's just not that. Like we're so conditioned to just say, what have you done for me lately? I mean, I'm pretty sure Kemba Walker had some really, really good games in a Celtics uniform in the first half, or before the season was put on halt. Everything was fine and dandy on the Kemba Walker front with, coexisting with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Everything was great. I mean, no one was saying, "Oh, let's get this guy out of town as soon as we can."
But I know, but Jimmy, my stance is different though. Both things can be true. Kemba Walker was a godsend. It's exactly what this team needed. I loved everything he did. I'm not saying he was a godsend. My shares now. I'm looking ahead. I'm projecting and I'm guessing. It's guesswork. But I'm concerned. Long term, it's going to get. This was the best year that we were going to see, and it didn't quite go as we wanted. And Nick was about to jump in, so I cut you off. Sorry.
No, it was all right. I'm thinking back on it now. What I said about Danny Ainge. If Danny was thinking about moving Kemba, the knee is great. Everything's great. Kemba has, and he was just kind of down on it from what I've seen. So I don't know. I mean, there is some credence to, and listen, Isaiah Thomas, that whole situation, like that was Anthony Davis's dad. You could all thank for that, or else we wouldn't still be talking about it. Right. So like, complaining and AD doesn't want to go there because of Isaiah and da-da-da-da-da. Like,
what a fraud. He wanted to go one place.
He wanted to go. They had that plan the entire time. If you trade Kemba or you include him in a trade, nobody's saying anything. That's today's NBA. And it just is what it is. So I see what Jimmy's saying. I mean, I don't know what the upgrade is. I do think Jrue Holiday.
The upgrade's defensive.
It's defensive, and it's also not ball stopping, right? Because Kemba does tend to have the ball in his hands a lot. The big thing for me is, I know you guys did, Bobby, you throw out all these stats from the playoffs. I couldn't care less if he had 0 points a game, but in crunch time, when this team got rattled constantly and they weren't following the plays, or Brad Stevens just wasn't calling plays, you expect a veteran playoff ready, playoff experience or not, to calm them down. And he was not able to do that. I mean, he was non-existent for the most part. He wasn't the Kemba he was during the season.
That comes down to the Brown and Tatum types to be able to step up to that moment, because nobody else is going to be able to do that.
Tatum showed his immaturity in the playoffs.
So yeah, I mean, this team's championship potential is going to be based on their ability to get there. And this comes down to the fundamental question we have to ask about this offseason. Do you want to just add a little bit to the bottom of the team, improve that bench, stick with the team they have, or blow this up? Because the way we're talking, we want to blow this all up around Brown and Hayward.
Stop blowing it up. You're changing pieces on the fly. This is you're building around two players, and you're going to continue to revolve around the pieces around these players, fitting in not just for now, but for down the road. And ultimately, again, we keep, I've been talking about it for weeks now, into that 2023 year, when you're looking at re-signing Tatum to the long-term mega deal, you got to make sure you're positioned to make sure that he stays and he brings his buddies here. And this is the location of the super team that they form at that time. So until then, you're not looking to blow it up and win now versus win later. You've only got these pieces. And you've got these salaries, and you either stick with what you got, risk Gordon walking and an aging Kemba, or you start to move stuff around and see if you can make it better for yourselves. You have to listen to these. You got to consider a lot of this stuff.
Holiday makes you a bit more expensive after next year for the foreseeable future. And he's not an all-in guy either. Like, I like him. He'd be a good supplement to the team. But trading in a piece as gigantic as Kemba for him and then re-signing Holiday to an extension like you would have to isn't great to me. I'm not captivated by this Hayward for Turner thing either.
Please, I will take that out of there.
You're going to have to re-sign Holiday, who's going to be, 31, 32, into a 4-year deal. So now you've got a guy that, I mean, you would have gotten rid of Kemba sooner. So, I mean, what's it going to be, John? You say,
the same age.
An aging.
They're the same age.
Okay, you just called
aging. He's another guy who's dealt with injuries, too.
John just said aging Kemba, so say aging Holiday, too, because they're both the same age, and now you want to re-sign Holiday. And by the way, if you want to talk about blowing it up, you're not going to blow it up unless you trade Tatum. or Brown, really. You're not
We're
blowing
not
up.
talking
But
about
if
No,
you're
because
trading-
Hayward and Kemba are the core of this team as much as those other guys right now. For right now, maybe it's only another year or two,
Right,
but
but the
they're
other
as
thing is that-
important as those guys right now.
You overrate
all on
Hayward
board.
so much.
This is my last thing. I'm all on board on
I
trading the
would-
Sixers.
I want to know what people see in Miles Turner because
All right,
talk
wait,
about
I see a
overrating
guy who
a
can
guy.
stay
Hold
on
on,
the court.
Jimmy, finish your thought,
I
and
got
then
one
we'll
more
get into
thing.
that.
I'm all on board with trading the Pixies here, but if you guys are talking about the future on one hand, and then the next hand you're saying trade 3 picks for Jrue Holiday, well, what's it going to be? Because at some point, you need to hit somebody in this draft to build around your stars. You can't just
No
go
more draft.
What
trading
about
stars
Langford
signing
and
stars.
Carson Edwards and Rob
Exactly.
Williams? There's a lot of
What about
future
bring
pieces
Isaiah back?
Exactly, Bobby.
there.
Exactly.
Yeah, so those picks are just useless. So you're gonna have to try to link in a veteran to make something happen with that stuff if they're gonna move up. And if we get to the draft conversation,
All right, let's do it. Let's just rip off the Band-Aid
wait.
here, okay?
I thought Bobby wanted to hit on Miles Turner. Are we going back to that later?
We'll come back to it. Let's get into the draft, okay? We got 4 picks. Here's the reality, right? Here's what's likely going to happen. No one's going to trade with the Celtics because these picks are worthless. Draft picks are always worthless. Everyone's going to get mad at Danny now for not doing something drastic, even though chances are there's not going to be a deal worth making on the table because what you're offering is either one of your core pieces or this pile of garbage that is pick 14, 26, and 30. So realistically,
26 and 30. Oh,
we're looking at drafting at 14 and trading 26 and 30 forward into the future, or draft and stash. I think the former is most likely. You trade them for a pick, for somebody else's pick.
No more.
3 years from now, roll the
Draft
dice
and
that pick is mid. That's your hope. You trade 26 to somebody for their pick 3 years from now, and you hope that you hit a little bit higher in a better draft.
so I have a strategy
Bobby,
here.
wait,
John.
let me ask you: if they stand pat at 14, who do you like?
So I think the guys who are definitely going to be there are Tyrese Maxey, Kira Lewis, Green, Achua, and Jalen Smith. None of these guys blow you away. So I think what you're going to have to do here, and my idea is instead of trading up into the lottery, condense 26 and 30, maybe with a piece, a player, whatever, to get up to, say, 17 or 18. So all of a sudden you can double dip at 14 and 17 or 18 to try to get 2 shots here. Out of this group, I like Kira Lewis the most. He reminds me of Terry Rozier. He's a 6'3" guard. If we're talking about Kemba having injury concerns, you want to have a guy better than Brad Wanamaker, Tremont Waters, those kind of guys who has some burst, who can score double figures, who can defend, assist, all that stuff. So he's going to be the best of the guys that we're certain are right there. I think what gets interesting is those guys that I sent you as move-up potential, John, Devin Vassell and Isaac Okoro, Killian Hayes, who could be the best player in this draft, according to Kevin O'Connor. They get right to that 11, 12, 13 spot. It's the same thing as last year with Tyler Hero.
Yep.
The Celtics are at 14, and everybody you love, including a guy Goodman loves, like Sadiq Bey, who is a 3-and-D guy from Villanova, they all go off the board before the Celtics come up at 14, and all of a sudden you're just kind of left with scraps at that 14
So that's
spot.
my question, Bobby. If 14 doesn't get you into 6, 7, or 8, which I think is a pipe dream, can 14, 26, and 30 get you to pick 11 get one of those guys? And if that's the case, is it worth it?
So, I mean, this brings us back to Kemba. New Orleans has 13. Do all of a sudden they get up to 6, we get up to 13, and pick a guy right there that we love? I don't know if San Antonio and Sacramento are going to be willing trade partners. Phoenix is at 10, and they're trying to get Chris Paul, so I'm sure that's where that pick's going to go. So New Orleans is the hope. Like, that's the one hope. If there's a guy who's there at 13, can you flip up to that spot? Is it even worth it to do that in this case? I think you just stay at 14, try to double dip up to 17 and 18. Because, like, unless Devin Vassell is sitting there at 13, which Kevin O'Connor thinks is going to happen, like, I don't think there's anybody who blows you away at 13 either. So I just don't see the move-up potential here. Like, Detroit's going to stay at 7 unless they can offload Blake maybe somehow. Atlanta's going to be trying to get someone at 6. Jrue Holiday is a potential there. All the top 3 picks are trying to move back, but they're not moving back to 14. So the Celtics are pretty stuck at 14 for the second year in a row.
All right.
But if the Celtics had like with Tyler Hero, I mean, if there was somebody that they really really were high on, theoretically it would be easier for them probably this year to move up than it was last year because of the number of picks they have. Or are you saying they're just worthless picks regardless?
They're worthless. Like 26 and 30 might as well be second rounders. Like, what are you going to get there? I think when it comes to trading up, you try to, like, I think of the Luka Doncic, Trae Young deal, which was what, like 3 for 5. Like the other team gets a pick in that same similar range where they can pick another guy they like in that same range. If you're bumping back from 6 to 14, all of a sudden you're in a whole different tier.
I'm talking 10. I'm talking like 10 or 11.
Yeah. I mean, the tricky thing there is you run into teams that are also trying to trade up or get a guy in those spots. So like here's what you could do. Do you throw in a Rob Williams? Do you throw in a Romeo Langford? Do you throw in so all of a sudden you're talking about moving players.
Like 1 year later, Romeo Langford is throw in.
All right, I'm not giving up on Kemba, but I am giving up on. It
makes me want to cry.
There's your answer, Jimmy. If they throw some players to these other teams that those teams like, and Rob Williams is that guy, I think he still has some value.
Sell high. Right now, there are teams out there dumb enough to think like, well, Langford might have just been.
The tricky thing about Langford is he's hurt. Like that's what kills his value.
The tricky thing about him is he sucks.
Oh, that's
I was just gonna say that. That's what I was gonna say. I held back.
Well,
that's the tricky
thing about Langford. He's always been hurt. It didn't stop Danny Ainge.
That's what I was gonna say too.
Hold on.
Yeah, his value might be zero right now.
Guys, we gotta pay some bills here, okay? So we want to tell you about Manscaped. All right, that's our sponsor. Everybody loves Manscaped. So hang on while I tell you everything you need to know about them. It's our friends here. This is the Garden Reports brought to you by Manscaped, and they're here to remind you to take care of your biggest grooming and hygiene needs from head to toe. The all-in-one Manscaped Performance Package
Kit knees and toes
delivers the best tools. Right, if you're me, you need it head to toe. Delivers the best tools to shave your entire body, including the family jewels. That's right. So it's for your most aggressive hair below the waist. The new Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer is a must. It's waterproof, advanced skin-safe technology to reduce nicks and cuts, and even has a light to help with your close shave down there.
Oh, wow. In the dark.
In the crevice, the dark crevices.
Yep, right. With those hard to see places. Manscaped went one step further and just released their Weed Whacker ear, nose, and hair trimmer. As you
wait a minute, I'll be right back.
Don't forget to whack the weeds upstairs. The performance package also includes a crop preserver. That's deodorant for down below to protect against chafing. Also, the crop reviver. Which is a toner, keeps your boys fresh at all times. And I guess it's vegan and cruelty-free and dye-free, too, so that's pretty good. Smelly feet, we've got the foot duster. Want to smell good everywhere? Cologne.
Is that it, Nick?
Cologne. Nick wears the cologne.
They sent me this extra large Manscaper. I'm not sure why. Yeah. This is full of, like, Manscaped stuff.
Yeah.
So we could give it away.
Nick wears the cologne even though he doesn't leave his apartment. He just
put it on my jewels.
Yeah.
On my jewels.
So let me tell you, we have to tell you about the deal though, okay? On top of everything, they'll throw in a shed travel bag to carry around all of your goods. So how do you get this? 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use the code GARDEN20. Once again, that's manscaped.com. Use the code GARDEN20 for 20% off and free shipping. Your balls will thank you.
I'm thanking my balls. I got all these Manscapers. It's like Christmas here. I'm all out of breath. I can't even see down there anymore. I got so fat during quarantine.
All right. Is this guy okay?
Can we mute him and block him?
Yeah, I'm trying to get him out of here. I don't know how. Stop running around in there. You're like a child.
Dude, Nick, nobody asked you to go get that and open it up. What is this? An unbox? Nobody asked you.
I know, but I didn't get anything for my birthday, and then this came in the mail, and I was like, "Holy cow!"
We literally lost 20% of our viewers in the last 5 minutes.
Who wants a Manscaper?
This will be the last
30.
The last sponsored. Video for a while.
So before we get off the draft, the 3 guys I'd love to see.
Bobby wants no part of the Manscaped.
I own one. That's why.
Oh, Bobby!
All right.
I'm already a dedicated user. The three guys I'm looking to trade up for in this draft if they get a chance, if they start sliding. Onyeka Okongwu, who doesn't seem like he's going to slide at this point. The hype has caught on with him, and he's as high as 3 in some of these drafts. A possible upgrade on Robert Williams, who is already well into his development, whereas we're still waiting on Rob Williams. You want to have a center for the future because Daniel Tice is going to be gone soon. Devin Vassell, I love. He's a 3-and-D guy from Florida State. He shoots the 3 at 42%. He defends like Marcus Smart in the tape I've seen, like the intensity, the eye for the ball, the positioning, all that stuff at 6'7" rather than 6'3". Just and then third among that group is his professional player since 14, a step back jumper, shot creator, crafty passer. He could run that second unit, and he's a guy for the future for this team that you can legitimately say he's the next guy. He's the guy we're looking forward to into the future. And if you're trading up, that's what you trade up for.
Did you say professional since he was 14?
Yeah, he's from France. His dad went to Penn State, moved to France to play professionally, and then had a kid, and the kid started playing professionally in France. This draft has a ton of overseas guys. There's less college guys than ever before.
The next Yabusele is out there, guys. You just got to be lucky enough to grab him.
You just got to be able to grab him and stash him. That's
got to grab him.
Sure you can stash him and
if
hide
you have
him
the
from
30th
everybody.
pick, you can do that.
All right, so that's all the draft talk that I can possibly handle.
We're going live on draft night, right?
We are going live on draft night.
The most boring night of all time.
Like I said, I'm just going to yell at everything. I don't like any of it.
Is that next Wednesday? When is that?
Wednesday.
6 days
so
away.
Okay, I'm going to say this, though. We can't possibly go live for the entire 4 hours of that boring-ass draft.
We're going to jump on after they pick or trade. Anybody out there watching, that's what we're going to do. We're going to be on call, and when something happens, we're going to jump on. We're going to react to it instantly. We'll do something at the end of the night to wrap it all up. We're not going to be here all night long, but we will be doing stuff on Twitter and CLNS Media and Celtics blog and all that good stuff. So definitely stay with us on draft night. We will have comprehensive coverage, and we'll jump on with Garden Report draft night specials on and off throughout. Anytime something interesting happens, we'll pop up. We'll talk about it. So we'll be here all night. We do want to move on and talk about our man, Tommy Heinsohn, the legend. I know Nick, Mr. Superfan here, is probably taking it harder than anybody.
Bobby's a super fan, man.
Bobby as well. And again, look, Tommy Heinsohn, his contributions to the Celtics, to basketball, to all of us are immeasurable. He's the one link we have to all 17 titles we had, and he's been around forever. And any of us, and as I said, Jimmy and I had the good fortune to work with him and get to know him a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of go around the horn here, and everybody can just talk about what it is that they, will miss most, what their stories, anything you want to say. And Nick, I'll start with you.
Put me on the spot. I mean, Tommy's Mr. Celtic, right? I mean, growing up, we didn't say we're going to watch the Celtics. We said we're going to watch Tommy and Mike. So, and we all knew he was sick. I think he's been kind of pulling back together and getting healthy again over and over in this past year. And, man, I just know the last couple of years seeing him in the press room, man, he just looked uncomfortable, so. But when you think about Tommy, the one I think is, and John, you're probably in the same boat as me, as much as I think about Tommy and Mike, I also think about Brent and Dick Stockton on the CBS broadcast, which would be hilarious because Tommy would try so hard not to be biased, and he was overly biased. And it's like one last link to Red, the old school players. It's a part of, you feel that legendary mystique when you walk in Boston Garden, and that's a piece that's gone with the old Garden now. And the other thing is, don't discount, he was there when Russell, they went home because they couldn't eat in that restaurant when they were on tour. So he had a lot to do with supporting those aspects as well. And he's a Bostonian, man. I mean, if you just think of Boston, Tommy Heinsohn.
Nick, the union angle too, like
The
getting the
union, he was the
going.
first player. Wasn't he the first Players Association president, I think?
Yeah, they did the All-Star boycott. Like, he's everywhere throughout history.
Very,
It's crazy.
very brilliant man who you don't see that side of him. Loved Winston Churchill, and he was a great painter just like Winston Churchill. So Tommy's really missed. I mean, as much as you prepare for it, I feel a void, I mean, games are going to come up. Who's it going to be? Now, who's going to be? Is it going to be Scal? Boy, he's got big shoes to fill, literally. That's my Tommy tribute. R.I.P. Big man. Tommy Gunn. Tommy Hawk.
Jimmy, you knew him a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that me and Tommy were tight, but I mean, when
you were, I saw you guys out.
Well, yeah, when first of all, I grew up a Celtics fan, like you guys, and the one thing that Nick kind of touched on is even if you never had a chance to meet Tommy, you knew Tommy because he was there on the couch watching the game with you and your family or your friends. Listen, I grew up as a Celtics fan in like the late 90s, early 2000s. There were some dark times as a Celtics fan there. And, listening to Tommy and Mike and being a part of the broadcast in that way was awesome. It made the games worth watching when typically sometimes they wouldn't be. So, I mean, Tommy's a legend. I mean, the one word that jumps out to me is passion. I mean, nobody was more passionate about the Celtics than Tommy Heinsohn was, whether he was a player, coach, broadcaster. I mean, he lived and breathed Celtics basketball. And then, sure enough, flash forward to, my first big job in sports media was at CSN New England, now NBC Boston. And I used to work the desk. I used to work nights. And, there was a time, where Tommy stopped traveling with the team and he would go into the studio, watch the game. A lot of times I'd be watching the game, could be right next to him. And it eventually got to the point where they started a CSN Twitter account in Tommy's name. And we kind of rotated watching the games with him and tweeting what he was saying while watching the games. And trust me, we had to put our own words in some of those tweets because we couldn't exactly tweet everything that he was saying, but he's fired up all the time. The last, I remember him as just always, passionate, fired up guy, funny. And it was just such a honor to just be able to hang out in the same vicinity as him, and I tell people it's he kind of felt like my 7-foot grandfather at times, just like this legend, just walking through the halls. And he was like, okay, that's Tommy Heinsohn just walking by there. So it was cool. And I was obviously, super sad to hear that he passed, but kind of got the idea that he wasn't doing too well when you didn't see much of him this season at all. So he's in a better place now.
Before you move on to Bobby, when we all we're at the age where we still were able to see games where Havlicek would be there and JoJo would be there and Satch would be there, Tommy. You had that kind of Celtic vibe. And now, if you really think about it, it's Max. Who's left? I mean,
Nobody,
Bill
really.
Russell's out in Seattle. Sam Jones hasn't been back yet, I don't think. KC is not well.
Around.
Yeah, so who's left from the legendary alumni? Red's probably rolling in his grave, but it's Cedric Maxwell is the lone legend left.
Hey, we'll take him.
I'll take him. No problem with Max.
About Tommy, that's why Tommy's one of a kind. There's really nobody else like Tommy because you're not going to even current day. I don't even know if you can even find a player to that magnitude, a player, coach, broadcaster that matches what Tommy meant to the Celtics.
Yeah, Tommy.
Certainly not in Boston. So
to do all three
I
things.
don't think.
Yeah, to do all those three things with one team is unprecedented. To have nothing in between, no other destinations. I heard on a podcast yesterday that he almost took a job with another team after getting fired by the Celtics as the head coach, but he stuck around. And that presence, that longevity, those are the two things you hear about him that were just unmatched. And it's amazing that Max is even able to approach that. Being the player here, being the broadcaster. And then, still going for all these years. I think the fact that he was able to reach the 2010s the way he did, that sixth decade, that's what really took him to the next level. Because for my generation, the generation that grew up knowing him as the broadcaster and the second half of his broadcasting career, we don't buy into these figures, like whether it's networks, whether it's, institutions. We kind of just do our own thing. It's the memes, it's Twitter, it's social media, but Tommy still found a way into that. I mean, he was doing weird Celtics Twitter stuff with NBC at the end. Like, people who watch the Celtics at my age still knew him as well as anybody who watched him in the 60s. Like, once it reached that sixth decade to a generation that's hard to captivate, to keep paying attention to one thing, everybody who grew up watching the Celtics my age still knew Tommy, and is frankly as sad as anybody that he died this week. So, like, it's amazing to me, like, the way he would complain about the calls, we brought in the pickup games, the way people would just get frustrated with things. Like, there are so many things he added to the basketball dialogue in Boston. Yeah. And then right to his very last year, the Aaron Baines shower thing, like that was all anybody talked about all year.
Tommy's
including Aaron.
Tommy's extremely lucky that he was of that generation where he could get away with saying a lot of things.
Yeah.
That goes to players too. Yeah. Like, was every Celtic player on this current roster best friends with Tommy? Not really, but there was a guy, Marcus Smart, who was
very close,
and that says a lot about Smart. Yeah, but Smart, you saw Smart's tweet about him. You saw the interactions those two had. Like, Smart buys into the Celtics lore.
So does Jaylen Brown.
That's dying a little bit.
I saw Tony Allen on a podcast today, and he was saying that he and a bunch of those guys on those teams would be fighting for the Tommy
points. Yeah, Paul Pierce said same thing. Paul Pierce said the same thing. Perkins, same thing.
Sponsor gimmick thing, like whatever, that we just capitalized on the Tommy point and the Tommy award, and they loved getting Tommy points because it was like, Tommy thought I went above and beyond, and they loved that. So, like, they knew he was there. You also heard other players talking about how was it Pierce talking about it was like a sixth man because you had a guy who was yelling at the refs, so you didn't have to do it, so you wouldn't get teed up. So he was like extra player on the court, just letting the refs have it. You'd be like, yeah, that's right. Listen to Tommy, and then they didn't have to go in on those guys. But I like what Bobby said with his perspective, that reaching that younger generation. It is amazing because, like, I mean, I'm the oldest guy in this room, and like Tommy Heinsohn to me was a national broadcaster. That's the first time I'm joining the Celtics world post Tommy coaching, career. None of us were around to see him really play or coach or be part of the organization. He was that guy, and he still is this just indelible. He's got this mark on the franchise. It's just so clear. You're born into it. You follow the Celtics and you know exactly who Tommy Heinsohn is and what he means. And that's not the same for every player and every person who played way back in the day. Tommy Heinsohn kind of transcended that generational thing where it didn't matter at what point you jumped on the Celtics train. You knew exactly who Tommy was, why he mattered. And it wasn't one of those like, and again, we worked with him, Jimmy. When he walked in, it wasn't like, oh, eye roll, here's that old guy. There was reverence, and it was kind of a jokey, fun thing, but it was like, here's Tommy. And it wasn't just that guy who was still hanging on, doing a job because nobody wanted to tell him like, okay, enough, big guy. He was an asset. He was still performing at a high level in his 80s. The young reporters would sit around him and just wait for him to talk so they could glean and get some info off of him. And they would just hover around him, especially like sitting in the Red Auerbach room there and watching the game. A lot of the reporters would just be like, so what do you think, Tommy? And they were getting a lot of info and stuff off of him. So people loved being around him, not just for the presence, but for the knowledge, for all of it. I mean, it was, he's, like I said, it was a transcendent figure.
Yeah, that was the thing I was going to say is, if you ever watched, CSN at halftime or post game and Tommy was on, we didn't give him any notes. We didn't give him a script or any. I mean, his basketball knowledge never left him. Up to the last show he probably did at the studio, right, John? I mean, he was constantly sharp with what was going on in the games, and as he should be. I mean, basketball is his life, but I mean, it was just like you said, John. I mean, these guys were, we were all like picking his brain about things because he's just a legend. And the one thing, what's up, Bob?
I was going to say, I love that he never took that. This game sucks. These players don't have what we did. Like, he never took that approach. Now, was his analysis kind of old school? Run the big men up the floor, push the pace, that kind of stuff?
That is the way basketball should be played.
Yeah, like I get. Yeah, you're right, Nick. I guess like his perception of the game
Bobby,
like, fit the modern mold.
Raptors super fan here.
Yes, I mean it is
that door for so long.
this fan. If you don't acknowledge him, Bobby, I think he's gonna have a heart attack. Of course, we can't pronounce it, but
no, he's been at it. Toronto, thank you for joining. We miss you guys like crazy. I'm not.
I hope you guys get to keep the Raptors next year.
Yeah, right.
He did have some old school thinking, and a lot of times, you know, I mean, Jesus, he's never. I don't. The foreign almost caused his retirement because he just couldn't pronounce one friggin' name.
Taco.
Giannis.
How about the way you pronounce taco? Taco.
John, remember back in the day when Tommy would do play-by-play and Kuz on the road? Kuz would do color.
Yeah.
It was like a shit show. Oh, my God. No one knew anyone's name. The accents, it was scary. One thing somebody posed to me this week 2 or 3 times on different shows was, who represents the Celtics more? Who embodies the Celtics more than Tommy Heinsohn in the franchise? Because you're like you got every reason you guys just mentioned, 6, 7 decades. No, you could say Bill Russell, and I agree, but Bill Russell hasn't been around in 40 years.
I think it's Tommy. I think it's Tommy. For the reasons we just talked about. I mean, Bobby, I mean, you're part of the younger generation. I mean, do people your age resonate more with Tommy Heinsohn, being around the team and the broadcaster, or do they think about all the championships Bill Russell won back in the 50s and the 60s? I mean,
it's Tommy. Bill hasn't been around, you know.
And Bill's been shy about not wanting to be around.
Red Auerbach, but anyway.
That's not diminishing what Bill Russell or Red Auerbach have done. It just goes to show you that Tommy Heinsohn he's bridged the gap. He's completely bridged the gap from when he started to when he passed away. I mean, he is like, when you think of the Boston Celtics, I mean, I think he's got to be in every knowledgeable fan's top 3 first people you think of. And honestly,
I would think so.
I think Tommy's a huge reason why the Garden is a really tough place to play with the fans.
I do too.
My friend Nick actually texted me this. He's like, dude, Tommy had me growing up thinking that every ref was out to get us, and like I actually still think that. And
that still exists, yeah.
And like that's like when the ref screws up in the TD Garden,
like it's rigged.
They hear it. I mean, the
game is rigged.
Yeah, I mean, literally though. I mean, you grew up thinking like they're out to get us. You know, all of a sudden like they announce the referees tonight, and you're like, here we go. Here
I love
we go,
it.
the NBA.
This is bogus.
Would be this. Yeah. My favorite topic would be this. Something would happen. Instinctively, he would be like, "That's a terrible call," and then they replay it.
You
could see that he was totally wrong, and he was just like, calling them all game. You know, he'd never.
This is a greatness.
He'd never eat one. He never ate one. He'd never be like, "All right, I was wrong. He got him."
I love the way he brought back the word bogus. Like that just
bogus. When
Great
I first
word.
started in this, doing the Celtics late night show, there was Mike the Scotsman Munger, and he was like Tommy, and they used to say I screamed like Tommy. Everything was about Tommy, you know. So, like you guys said, I mean, it's there's no question. I think he's Mr. Celtics. Yes, Red Auerbach, but Red Auerbach to the younger generation is now might as well be Babe Ruth.
Red Auerbach's a legend. Tommy is like a living legend.
Yeah, Tommy's like your grandfather, man. I mean, it's just so hard, and my heart goes out to Mike Gorman. 40 years. I mean, Tommy and Mike, they were like Benifer, right? They were the same name, you know? So watching, and I will give my hats off to NBC. They did a great job paying tribute to him yesterday, and Gorman just broke me up, man. I mean, those guys, hey, relish it while you can, Celtics fans, while Gorman is around, because that's a national treasure. I hope he doesn't retire.
Yeah. Well, guys, we've spent an hour here, and it was we gave Tommy his due, and I don't think we're done talking about Tommy Heinsohn now or forever, because like I said,
statue's got to be coming someday. Right?
They're talking about it already.
They're gonna name like a wing of the Garden after him, I think, at some point. So
here's the hard part, John. Right before you
the
cut.
Tunnel.
It's so ironic because Tommy, and it just goes for 2020, Tommy's biggest connection, 10 championships, underrated player, the Players Association, coaching, Red, everything else. But Tommy's biggest takeaway is his relationship with the fans over 50 years, 60 years.
Yeah.
And here we can't pay tribute to him at the Garden. So I'm hoping the energy for Tommy and the love is still there when everybody gets back in the Garden in 2050 and we're all there, paying tribute,
All right, Mr.
re-raising
Doom
his
and Gloom.
number.
I'll tell you
What'd
what.
you say?
Whenever we are allowed back in, it's going to be very loud, a lot of fun, and Tommy's definitely going to get his fair, more than he's going to get his night for sure.
Jimmy, we got KG too. KG's got to get his night.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to.
And then we can have the Ray Allen debate again.
Yeah, again. Rondo is now the one they're talking about. Come on.
Bring him back.
All right, that's going to do it.
Bring him back.
We are going to give one last shout out to our fellow Manscaped. Nick,
It threw. Kick him off.
I couldn't concentrate on the read.
It was great.
Oh God!
It's like one thing if you're going to bring the product over.
Guys, we got the people have to hear this. We're
gonna get it, and I want them to hear it.
20% off, free shipping with the code Garden20 at Manscaped.com. 20% off, free shipping, Garden20, Manscaped.com. Shout it from the mountaintops. Okay, go get your kit, or head over to Nick's house and he'll share. He's only used it once.
On my face.
Yeah. If you tweet at Nick, he'll send you the one that he.
I'll send you a shirt. I'll send you the box. I'll send you, at CLNS_Nick.
Always smells like ball powder.
That is the cologne I wear. It's BP ball powder.
He puts it everywhere.
He's actually, He actually kind
Go
of.
ahead.
Kind of is just you just kind of give off that you just are that. You are just walking ball power.
I'm a walking ball powder.
Yeah.
Doopy powder, they used to say. Now ball powder.
Kind of how you're built.
All right. That's it.
Thanks.
We're over an hour. We're good. We're back on draft night. We may do something else again later this week if we have time. Certainly if any news changes with the Celtics.
The trade moratorium ends Friday, I think, or Saturday. So we'll learn a lot more in the next 2 days.
So that's the thing. We may come back a Saturday, Sunday with some more news. So keep it here. Follow us on clnsmedia.com. Subscribe, Celtics All Access on YouTube. Follow Nick Gelso, CLNS founder and Twitter machine. Jimmy Toscano, Bobby Manning, Celtics blog, and CLNS Media. We will